I pretended to be unconscious in the hospital just to hear what my family really thought about me. It started 3 days after my motorcycle accident. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive. Cracked ribs, concussion, broken leg. But I was healing faster than expected. By day 3, I was fully awake, but something made me keep my eyes closed when I heard footsteps approaching. My older brother Camden entered first. "Still out cold," he said to someone behind him. "Good," came my mother's voice. Maybe this will finally teach her a lesson. My heart stopped. What lesson? I mean, riding that death trap at 25? Mom continued. She's always been reckless. Remember when she dropped out of law school? To become a paramedic, Camden corrected. Which, let's be honest, was probably smart. She never had the brains for law anyway. I lay there, perfectly still, as my family dissected my life choices like I was already dead. The worst part is the money. Mom sighed. "Do you know how much this hospital stay is costing? And she has that bare bones insurance from her ambulance job. We could always just..." Camden's voice dropped lower. "Don't even say it," Mom hissed. "I'm just saying, if she doesn't wake up, the life insurance would..." "Stop." Mom's voice was sharp. "Someone might hear you." My blood turned to ice. They were discussing my life insurance, while I was lying right there. "Look, all I'm saying is, maybe this is a sign," Camden continued. "She's never fit in with this family anyway. Always playing hero, always making us look bad with her blue-collar job. Remember when she brought that homeless man to Christmas dinner?" Mom asked, her voice dripping with disgust. "Or when she testified against Uncle Richard at his trial," Camden added. Uncle Richard, the family secret we weren't supposed to talk about. The reason I'd cut contact with most of my relatives 2 years ago. She destroyed this family, Mom said quietly. "Richard's in prison because of her lies." Lies. They were calling my testimony about what he did to me lies. The room fell silent. I heard the rustle of clothing like someone was leaning closer to my bed. "You know what I think?" Camden whispered. "I think we need to have a serious conversation with her doctor about her prognosis." "What kind of conversation?" Mom's voice was barely audible. "The kind where we discuss quality of life. Brain injuries can be unpredictable. Sometimes it's more merciful to let someone go." "Camden? Think about it, Mom. She's never going to change. She'll wake up and go right back to embarrassing us. Back to her pathetic job, her bleeding heart causes, her vindictive crusade against our family. She cost us everything," Mom said, her voice growing stronger. "The country club membership, the charity board positions. Do you know how humiliating it was when the Weatherbys asked me to step down? Because of her lies about Richard," Camden agreed. "One troubled girl's fantasy destroyed a good man's reputation." Fantasy. 15 years of abuse was a fantasy to them. "If she doesn't wake up," Camden continued slowly, "the insurance money would solve a lot of problems. We could pay off the house, maybe take that European trip you've been wanting." "How much is the policy worth?" Mom asked. $200,000. Plus there might be a settlement from the motorcycle company. Faulty brakes, remember? My stomach churned. The brakes weren't faulty. I'd hit black ice. "We'd have to be careful," Mom said. "Make sure everything looks natural." "Of course." Grief-stricken family making the difficult decision to let their daughter go peacefully. "When should we talk to the doctor?" "Soon, before she shows more signs of improvement." I heard footsteps moving closer to my bed again. "Look at her," Camden said, his voice cold. 25 years old, and this is what she has to show for it. No husband, no real career, no money. She's a disappointment. I had such hopes for her," Mom sighed. "Law school, a proper marriage, grandchildren. Instead, she chose to throw it all away. For what? To save strangers who probably don't even appreciate it? She always was selfish." Mom agreed. "Even as a child, always causing drama, always seeking attention." Attention. That's what they called my cries for help when Uncle Richard was hurting me. "The funeral would actually help our image," Camden mused. "Tragic young woman, taken too soon. People love a martyred hero story. We could set up a scholarship," Mom added, warming to the idea. "Show how much we supported her career choice. Perfect. Turn her into a symbol while finally being free of the real thing." Their footsteps moved toward the door. "I should go talk to that doctor," Mom said. "What's his name? Martinez? Good idea. And I'll call the insurance company, just to understand the process. Remember, if anyone asks, we were here praying for her recovery," Camden finished. "I know." The door clicked shut. I lay in the darkness, processing what I'd just heard. My family wasn't just disappointed in me, they were actively hoping I'd die, and they were planning to profit from it. I forced myself to breathe normally, to keep my heart rate steady. The monitors beside me beeped rhythmically, marking time while I tried to understand what kind of people I was related to. That night I replayed every conversation from my childhood, every family gathering, every moment I thought showed love. How many of those smiles had been fake? How many expressions of pride had been performances for outsiders? I remember the night I'd finally told my parents about Uncle Richard. I was 22, home from college for Christmas break. I'd spent 4 years in therapy, building the courage to speak. When I finally said the words, told them what he'd done to me from age 7 to 18, their first response wasn't concern for me. It was concern for the family reputation. "Are you sure you remember this correctly?" Mom had asked. "You were so young. Children sometimes misinterpret adult affection," Dad had added. They'd spent that entire conversation trying to convince me I was wrong, that Uncle Richard was a good man who'd been nothing but kind to me. When I insisted, when I showed them the journal I'd kept documenting every incident, they'd accused me of having an overactive imagination. "You always were dramatic," Mom had said, making up stories to get attention, but I hadn't made it up. And 2 years later, when Uncle Richard was caught abusing my cousin Layla, they couldn't deny it anymore. The physical evidence was undeniable. The medical reports were conclusive. Yet somehow, even then, I remained the villain in their story. The next morning brought more visitors. My cousin Bridget arrived with her husband Trevor, both dressed in expensive clothes that screamed success and superiority. "Any change?" Bridget asked, settling into the chair beside my bed like she was attending a social event. "None," Mom replied, her voice heavy with manufactured grief. "The doctors say it could go either way." "Such a tragedy," Trevor said, though his tone suggested he was discussing the weather. "She was so young. Has anyone been to her apartment?" Bridget asked, and I could hear the calculation in her voice. "I mean, someone should check on her things. Make sure nothing gets stolen." My apartment. The one-bedroom place I'd worked 3 jobs to afford, decorated with secondhand furniture and artwork from local artists I'd befriended. It wasn't much, but it was mine. "Camden has her keys," Mom said. "He's handling all that." "Good thinking," Trevor said. "Does she have any valuables? Electronics? Jewelry? Savings accounts?" The audacity was breathtaking. They were cataloging my possessions while I lay supposedly unconscious 3 feet away. "Not much." Camden's voice joined the conversation as he entered the room. Her bike was the most expensive thing she owned, and that's totaled. "What about her savings?" Bridget pressed. "Investment accounts? Retirement funds?" "She spent everything on that ridiculous motorcycle," Mom said with disgust, "and giving money away to every sob story that crossed her path." They were talking about my donations to the women's shelter, the homeless veteran I'd helped get back on his feet, the immigrant family whose medical bills I'd paid when their son was hit by a drunk driver. "Remember when she paid for that stranger's cancer treatment?" Bridget laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Thousands of dollars to someone she'd met exactly once." "Or when she gave her entire Christmas bonus to that animal rescue," Camden added, shaking his head like my generosity was a mental illness. "At least she had good life insurance," Trevor said, steering the conversation back to finances. "That shows some planning ahead." "The EMT union required it," Camden explained, though I doubt she understood what it meant for her beneficiaries. "Who are the beneficiaries?" Bridget asked, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "Mom and I are listed as co-beneficiaries," Camden said. "She set it up when she started the job, back when she still considered us family, before I'd testified against Uncle Richard. Before I'd learned that truth was less important to them than reputation." "That's fortunate," Trevor said, the word hitting me like a physical blow. "At least something good can come from this tragedy. Fortunate." My potential death was fortunate to them. They stayed for another hour, their conversation drifting between fake concern for my condition and very real interest in my financial situation. They discussed funeral arrangements, memorial services, and how to present my life story in the most flattering light possible. For them, not once did anyone mention missing me. No one shared a fond memory. No one expressed hope for my recovery. They talked about me like I was already dead, like I was a problem finally being solved. When they finally left, I heard Mom whisper to Camden in the hallway, "Have you talked to Dr. Martinez yet?" "This afternoon," he replied. "I'm going to ask about her realistic prognosis and our options." Our options, not my options. Theirs. That afternoon, Dr. Martinez entered with Camden, and I immediately sensed the tension between them. I'd liked Dr. Martinez during my conscious interactions. He seemed genuine, competent, and caring. I hoped he wouldn't be swayed by whatever manipulation Camden was planning. "Doctor, I need to ask some difficult questions," Camden began, his voice heavy with fake emotion that made my skin crawl. "Of course. What can I help you with? My sister's always been troubled. Mental health issues, risky behavior, poor decision-making. Is it possible that even if she wakes up, she might not be the same person?" I felt sick. Camden was laying groundwork to question my mental competency, setting up a narrative that would justify whatever they were planning. "Brain injuries can certainly affect personality and cognitive function," Dr. Martinez said carefully. "But your sister's scans look very promising. I expect a full recovery. But you can't be certain?" "Medicine isn't about certainties, Mr. Thornfield. It's about probabilities. And the probability is that your sister will make a complete recovery." "What if we're not comfortable with those odds?" Camden asked, and the casual way he said it made my blood run cold. There was a long pause. I could almost hear Dr. Martinez processing the implications of the question. "I'm not sure I understand what you're asking," he said slowly. "I'm asking about our options. As her family, if we feel that the quality of life she might have isn't acceptable." Another pause. This one felt dangerous. "Mr. Thornfield, are you asking about withdrawing life support?" "I'm asking about all our options. Your sister isn't on life support. She's breathing on her own, her vitals are stable, and her brain function is normal. There's nothing to withdraw. But if her condition deteriorated, there's no indication that it will. In fact, I expect her to regain consciousness within the next day or 2. I could feel Camden's frustration radiating across the room like heat. "Doctor, you don't understand. My sister has a history of making poor choices, reckless behavior. She caused significant trauma to our family with false accusations against a relative. If she wakes up, she might continue down that destructive path. False accusations. 15 years of documented abuse were false accusations. Mr. Thornfield, my job is to treat medical conditions, not to make judgments about patients' life choices. Your sister is recovering well from her injuries. That's all that matters to me. Even if she's a danger to herself and others? Has she been declared mentally incompetent by a court? No, but then she has the same rights as any adult patient. I'm going to check on her now. I'll ask you to step outside." Camden's footsteps retreated reluctantly, and I could hear his anger in the heavy way his shoes hit the floor. Dr. Martinez approached my bed, and I felt safer with him there. "Your vitals are excellent," he said, making notes on his chart. "Heart rate, blood pressure, brain activity. Everything looks normal for someone in your condition. He leaned closer and lowered his voice to barely above a whisper. I know you can hear me. Your brother's questions were inappropriate, and I want you to know that no one will make medical decisions for you without your consent. When you're ready to wake up, just open your eyes. My heart rate spiked on the monitor, betraying my consciousness. That's what I thought, he said quietly. Take your time. I'll be here when you're ready. He left, and I lay there processing what had just happened. Dr. Martinez knew I was conscious. He was protecting me. But for how long? And what would Camden do when he realized his plan wasn't working? That evening brought a parade of family members I hadn't seen since Uncle Richard's trial. They'd all cut contact with me after the conviction, choosing to side with an abuser rather than admit they'd failed to protect a child. My Aunt Dolores arrived first, her designer purse clutched like a weapon, her face arranged in an expression of theatrical grief. Such a tragedy. She sighed dramatically, taking the chair closest to my bed. She had so much potential. Wasted potential, Uncle Paul corrected as he joined her. But maybe this is God's way of giving her peace. Peace from what? Mom asked, though I suspected she already knew the answer. From her demons. From the lies she told. From the guilt of destroying our family. They thought I felt guilty. They thought I was tormented by telling the truth about Uncle Richard. Richard always said she'd been troubled since childhood, Dolores continued, her voice gaining strength as she warmed to her narrative. Making up stories, seeking attention. He tried to help her, spent so much time with her, trying to be a positive influence. Positive influence. That's what they called grooming. The trial nearly killed him, Paul added, his voice heavy with manufactured sorrow. An innocent man, destroyed by a disturbed girl's fantasies. He's doing better now, though, Dolores said, brightening slightly. Prison has given him time to reflect, to forgive her for what she did to him. Forgive me for what he did to me. He writes to us sometimes, Paul said. Never bitter, never angry, just sad that she couldn't accept his love and guidance. His love. 15 years of abuse was love to them. Maybe if she doesn't wake up, it's for the best, Paul mused, his voice taking on a philosophical tone. She can't cause any more damage. And Richard could finally have peace, Dolores agreed. Poor man has suffered enough. They stayed for 2 hours, taking turns sharing their revisionist history of my relationship with Uncle Richard. In their version, he was a misunderstood saint who'd tried to help a troubled child. I was a vindictive liar who destroyed an innocent man out of spite. The most disturbing part was how convinced they seemed of their own story. It